Imagine your morning coffee costs 5 times more because one boat got stuck sideways in a desert ditch. That is not a hypothetical. That actually happened. In 2021, a single ship blocked the Suez Canal for 6 days. The global economy lost around $10 billion per day. This is the story of 193 kilometers of water that holds the entire modern world hostage, and has been doing so on and off for over 150 years. To understand the canal, you need to understand what shipping looked like without it. Specifically, the absolute misery of sailing around the entire continent of Africa. London to Mumbai around Africa's Cape of Good Hope is roughly 19,000 kilometers. Through the Suez Canal, it is 11,000. The canal saves nearly 7,000 kilometers per voyage. That saving translates to roughly 2 fewer weeks at sea per voyage. Multiply that across 20,000 ships per year, and you start to understand what this ditch is actually worth. The canal carries about 12% of global trade and 30% of all container traffic on Earth. It is not a shortcut. It is the jugular vein of the world economy. The ideas of cutting a canal here goes back to the ancient Egyptians, but the modern version was built between 1859 and 1869 by a French company using Egyptian labor, under conditions historians politely describe as brutal. When it opened in 1869, the canal immediately became the most strategically important waterway on Earth, and that meant it immediately became the most fought-over real estate in the modern world. For most of its early life, the canal was effectively owned by a Franco-British company. Egypt had a world-changing waterway in its own territory and got a modest cut of the profits. Imagine renting your backyard gold mine for a small monthly fee. Then came Gamal Abdel Nasser, Egyptian officer, Arab nationalist, and a man with zero patience for European infrastructure running through his country. On July 26, 1956, Nasser announced Egypt was nationalizing the Suez Canal Company, taking full control, using its revenues to fund the Aswan High Dam. It was one of the most audacious political moves of the 20th century. Britain and France, furious and humiliated, secretly conspired with Israel to invade Egypt and take the canal back by force in 1956. This was their plan. The military operation initially worked. Then the United States told Britain and France, in no uncertain terms, to stop, get out, and go home. And they did. This moment is widely considered the precise hour when European imperial power finally died. Nasser kept the canal. Egypt won. The Americans won. Everyone else went home. 11 years later, the canal was closed again. This time it produced one of the strangest footnotes in all of maritime history. During the Six-Day War of 1967, Egyptian forces sank ships and laid mines in the canal to block an Israeli advance. It worked militarily. It also closed the canal for the next 8 years. At the moment of closure, 14 international cargo ships were caught inside the canal. Trapped. They couldn't go forward. They couldn't go back. They simply stayed there. Those 14 ships became known as the Yellow Fleet because desert sand slowly coated their hulls, turning them all the same dusty shade of yellow. They stayed there from 1967 to 1975. 8 years in a lake in the Egyptian desert. The crews were rotated out, but the ships stayed. They created their own postal system, held their own Olympic Games, and built their own community. It is simultaneously the most absurd and most human story the Cold War ever produced. Fast forward to March 23rd, 2021. A 400-meter-long container ship called the Ever Given entered the Suez Canal in high winds and got stuck, perfectly, almost geometrically, sideways across the entire width of the waterway. The bow was embedded in one bank, the stern pressed against the other. The canal was completely blocked. And for 6 days, the world watched a small excavator have a very public argument with a very large boat. About 400 ships were stranded waiting on both sides. Economists estimated the blockage cost global trade between $9 and $10 billion per day. The Ever Given was freed on March 29th, refloated by dredging, tugboat pressure, and what engineers diplomatically call a favorable tide. The waiting ships erupted into what can only be described as maritime celebration. But while the world made memes, it missed the larger point entirely. The Ever Given did not reveal a one-time accident. It revealed a permanent structural fragility in the global economy. The Suez Canal is not just a trade route, it is one of the most powerful geopolitical instruments on Earth, and Egypt uses it accordingly. The canal generates between $8 and $10 billion annually for Egypt, about 2% of its entire GDP, through transit fees alone. It is Cairo's single largest source of foreign currency. Through the canal flows 12% of global trade, 8% of the world's liquefied natural gas, 8% of global grain shipments, and enormous volumes of manufactured goods. Closing it is not an inconvenience. It is an economic earthquake. In recent years, Houthi attacks in the Red Sea forced hundreds of ships to reroute around Africa. Insurance premiums spiked, delivery times extended by weeks. Shipping costs surged. The world got a live preview of life without the Suez Canal. It did not enjoy it. The deeper lesson is this: humanity built a global system of extraordinary efficiency that depends entirely on nothing going wrong in a very small number of very specific places. We built a just-in-time economy that is astonishingly productive when everything works, and astonishingly fragile when one canal, one choke point, or one badly parked container ship decides to stop cooperating. The Suez Canal is not just a waterway. It is a mirror, and every crisis it produces reflects something true about how we have chosen to organize the modern world. Next time it makes headlines, and it will, you will know exactly why the entire world is holding its breath over 193 kilometers of water in the Egyptian desert. Stay tuned for more videos like this. Remember, events that will take place in the future are variations of events that have already occurred in the past. See you soon.